Good morning. This is Yogesh Rasing from Kendriya Vidyalaya Pachmadi. Today I am taking the English lesson on the poem The Road Not Taken for class 9th. The poem is written by Robert Frost. Dear students, I request you all to listen the pronunciation and the flow, intonation, pronunciation of the poem very nicely, and it is also requested to have a pen and paper with you so that if you feel that the words are hard, you can note it down on the paper. If you feel that you want the meanings and explanation once again, you can ask me on my WhatsApp number. Now here the poem starts. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And we one traveller, long I stood and looked down, one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So this is the first stanza, and I request you all to please note down the hard words. The second stanza is, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads to the way, I doubted if I should overcome back. So dear students, till here I would like to know whether you got the pronunciation well. You please write down on my WhatsApp number. Now, introduction of the poem. Dear students, in the poem, the road not taken, the road symbolizes our life. Are you getting my point? The road is symbolizing our life. The poet says that the path that we don't choose in our life is a road not taken. I am repeating it again. The poet says that the path that we don't choose in our life is a road not taken. He describes his feelings about that choice that he had left in the past. The path which we have chosen decides our future, our destination. I repeat it again. The path which we have chosen decides our future, our destination. The important message that the poet wants to give us is that the choice that we make has an impact on our future, and if we make a wrong choice, we regret it but cannot go back on it. I repeat it again, listen it very carefully. The important message that poet wants to give us is that the choice that we make has an impact on our life, on our future, and if we make a wrong choice, I repeat it again, and if we make a wrong choice, we regret it but cannot go back on it. So we must be wise while making choices. Now I will be explaining you stanza wise. The first stanza was, two roads diverged. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood and looked down as one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Let us have the meaning of certain words. Diverged. Diverged means separated and took a different direction. Spelling diverged, D-I-V-E-R-G-E-D, meaning separated and took a different direction. Yellow wood. The meaning of yellow wood is a forest with decomposing leaves. A forest with decomposing leaves. Undergrowth. Undergrowth. The meaning is dense growth of plants and bushes means the forest. Now we'll have the explanation for the first stanza. Once the poet was walking down a road and then there was a diversion. There were two different paths, and he had to choose out one of them. The poet says that as he was one person, he could not travel on one road only. The poet says that as he was only one person, he could travel on one road only. He had to choose one out of these two roads. Yellow wood means a forest which leaves which are wearing out and they have turned yellow in color. He had to choose one out of these two roads. He could travel on one road only. And yellow wood means a forest with leaves which are wearing out and they have turned yellow in color. The season of all this set is autumn. It represents a world which is full of people, where people have been living for many years. They represent people who are older than the poet. The poet kept standing there and looked at the path. He looked at the path and very carefully he looked as far as he could see. Before taking the path, he wanted to know how it was. Was it suitable as he could see it before taking the path? He wanted to know how it was. Was it suitable for him or no? He was able to see the path till from where it curved, after which it was covered with trees and was hidden. It happens in our life also when we have choices. We have alternatives, but we have to choose only one out of them. We take time to think about the pros and cons, where it is suitable for us or not, and only then we take a decision on what path we should choose. So this was the explanation of this stanza. Now I will make it more clear. The poet was standing on a fork path, diverged path. He had to choose only one. In front he was having two choices, whether he should go from this choice or whether he should go from this choice. Being only one person, he could choose only one. He could not travel on both. Being a one person, he has to choose only one path, cannot travel on both. And long he stood. He wants to know to which path he should go on. He has to make decision. He has to take the concern from his elders, from his friends, from his teachers, which path will be suitable, and make it very sure that the decision once taken, you cannot turn it around, because it is going to make the difference in your life. So children, this was the explanation for the first stanza. Now the second stanza. Listen very carefully. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn, then really about the same. You got the pronunciation? Okay, fine. Now we will have the certain words which may be hard for you, like fair. F-A-I-R. Meaning is as good as the other one. As good as the other one. Claim. C-L-A-I-M. Better option. Grassy. G-R-A-S-S-Y. Unused. Wanted wear. W-A-N-T-E-D. W-E-A-R. Had not been used. Now dear students, listen to the explanation very carefully. The poet kept on looking at one path for a long time to check if it is the right path for him or not. And then he decided and started walking on another path, because he felt that the both paths were equally good. He says just as fair, so he felt that both paths were equally good and started walking on one of them. He adds that maybe he felt that the path was better for him, so he chooses it. Now, it had grass on it, which means that it was unused. Not many people had walked on this path earlier. That is why this path was grassy and wanted wear. Means that it was not walked over by many people. After he walked on the path for some distance, he realized that both the paths had been worn out the same way. But both the paths were similar and worn out. Even in our life, we take any path or option, but all of them have the same benefits, disadvantages, problems, challenges, and we must face them. We think that we are choosing the better option, but it is not that way. In a simpler words, dear children, then he looked to the other just as fair. He was having two paths in front of him. He wanted to go on the other way. He was having the dilemma in his mind. In his mind, he was knowing that he has to walk on the better path, because whatever the path that he wants to choose or he will choose will make the difference. Similarly, I'll take the example in your life. Suppose if you're studying in class 9th, from 10th you have to take the decision whether you want to go to the science stream, to the math stream, or to the art stream. Here right now you have to decide your path, because finally this decision is going to take your future, your life. That is why whatever you choose, it has to be concrete, it has to be very nice and suitable for your life. Shall we move on for the third stanza? Third stanza is, and both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing that how way leads on that to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Dear children, certain words which are hard, like trodden, it's mean walked over. And in this stanza I don't feel any other word which is very hard, so we'll skip on to the explanation. Listen very carefully. The poet says that both the paths were similar. That morning both had leaves on them, and no one had stepped on them, as they were still green in color. He decided that day he would take one path and keep the other path for another day, although he knew that one way leads to another way. He knew that he could not go back on the choice that he had made. Similarly, even in our life, once we choose an option, we must keep on moving ahead with that option, and we never get a chance to come back and take the other option that we had left earlier. The explanation is crystal clear, that we are getting only one option, and from that we have to move ahead. Let us move on to the last stanza, and that is, I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less travelled, and that has made all the differences. So dear children, in this stanza there are certain words which seems to be hard, like sigh, S-I-G-H. The meaning is deep breath, hence H-E-N-C-E, here, in the future. So we'll be moving on to the explanation. He says that in the future we'll take a deep breath and say that once upon a time he had reached such a point in life that there were no two options for him, and he traveled on that road which had been traveled upon by lesser number of people. That decision of his decided his future. Similarly, in future, when you grow up, you will say that once upon a time when you were young and you had two options, the choice that you made you what you have become right now. This is a very strong message for all the students, that you should be wise and be careful while making choices out of the option that you have in your life, because your future depends on the choice that you make today. I repeat the message once again, listen it very carefully, that you should be wise and be careful while making choices out of the options that you have in your life, because your future depends on the choice that you make today. So dear children, this was a poem, The Road Not Taken, by Robert Frost, and I'll be waiting for the feedback. And if you have any query, you can write down on my number. All the queries will be satisfied. Thanks and have a nice day.